Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of My Fiber Fun. Well, I can't see, so I have my son readers on my chain here, although I have my non-son readers as well. But although things are, this is how I wear them right now. I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to do this. Now, my doctor told me that I would need either a 2.0 to 2.5 readers. I have 3 pair thus far. One is a 1.7, that wasn't enough. These right here are 2.0, and these are okay, but I bought them in the sunglass category. And then these right here are a 2.75. This is a little bit too much. I really, when I put these on, I can feel like a headachy feeling. They feel strong, but I'm thinking it's because of my left eye not being done yet. That's the reason why I'm getting that feeling. And so, but with the 2.0, what I have found is that I am wearing them like this. So if I need to look to where I can see far away, I just kind of tilt my head a little bit so you can see my eyes. But then if I need to look close up like I'm doing now, where I can actually see my Ray Charles looking self in the phone, okay, then I just, look straight ahead and then I can see. So right now it seems as if it's easier for me to be able to do both. So I'm just going to do this, okay? Now, before I get started, the preliminaries, just a few. My eyes, let me give you an update because it's been over a week now. I am still doing my drops religiously, and as you can see, I'm in week number 2. So right now I'm doing them 3 times a day, and today is the second day of that. So I do them now at breakfast, lunch. And I haven't done my second. I haven't marked it. Let me do that right now so I don't lose track. Believe me, it's easy to lose track. I usually do it right when I put the drop in, but I forgot to do it today. So you better, especially now during the 4-day, it's easier. But I found as of yesterday, I lost track and I was like, did I do the lunch one because I hadn't marked it? And so I had to think back. And finally I figured that I had done it. I did do it. So I went on and marked it. So now I know to be very careful, with the tritation, because you don't want to do extra or not enough. Okay, so anyway, I'm into the second week, and where you see this little star right here, that is the day of my surgery and the last day of doing the 3 times a day. So then it gets tricky after that, because for the right eye, I will move to 2 times a day, which is breakfast and dinner. I think, hold on, see, this is where the glasses come in good. Yes, it will be breakfast and dinner for week 3, but then I'll be at week 1 with the left eye. So that'll be 4 times, 4 and then 2. And then that final week, I will just do this at breakfast, first thing in the morning when I get to the last week of the right eye, and then I will be on to the tritation with the left eye. So everything should be done by April 22nd. I go to my final appointment on the 14th, which will be day 20. And so I should be getting the all clear then, and then I will just be finishing up that following week. Okay, so enough of that. The other thing, I've been working on my crocheting. Yes, I frogged it one last time. I wanted a thicker, and I like the in-between stitches better. I don't know why I took that last one down. Oh, I know why. Because I was using a size J hook, and I wanted it to be thicker, yet and still floppier. So I moved to a size H hook. Now, when I was doing the other one that I had gotten quite a bit of ways on, this was the size J hook, and it's very, very thin. In fact, it's so thin you can see through it. And although I do plan to put the backing on it, I did not want it this thin, because even with the backing, it would have still been kind of thin. I wanted it to where it would be nice and thick and warm for next winter. That's the main thing. So, and then I wanted it shorter because I had made that one too long. I had chained 250. That was entirely too long. And so this one I chained 210, I believe, and it's perfect. It reaches the floor and it still comes way over my shoulder. And of course, we have the heathered look. I'm liking it, and I'm using a size H hook for this, and it's perfect. I still have my drape, that I like, and it's nice. It's still nice and thick, and I think it looks better. I like the in-between stitches better. Now, it's not as bright and colorful, but it'll still work. So I'm working on this. I work on this during the day, and then in the evening, when it's time to settle down, I'm working on my sister's scarf, and I'm over halfway done with it, and I still have a lot of the silk yarn left. In fact, I'll show it to you. Well, it's not a lot, but it's still a skein of it. So now that I've measured it, she wanted it 13 inches across. To me, that's a little too wide, but she knows what she wants. She wanted it 13 because she said she wanted it thick. She wanted it wide so that she could double it over and then wear it as a snood. So I guess this would be perfect for her if she wanted to wear it as a snood, and do different things with it. I like it. I'm not complaining. And so it's, I like it. So anyway, it's going to be 72 inches long. So therefore, it will be plenty long, because right now we're already at like 40 inches long, and we still have 30 more to go, and there's plenty of yarn to do that. Okay, so why I came on today, as promised, I had mentioned that I would, if I had time, which I do today, because we went from summer to winter again. Today it has snowed pretty much all day. The high has only been 36 degrees. For the past 4 or 5 days, we have been in the low to mid 70s. I'm like, wow. So, yeah, it's pneumonia weather, as we here in Michigan call it. Pneumonia weather. You have to be careful. But I've been in. I went out one day. Well, you saw that video where I went to the liquidation store. That was the day I went out to get my gas, and then I had to stop at Myers to pick something up. And then while I was there, I picked up the reading glasses, and that was it. I haven't been out since, and I won't be going out anymore until Monday. Oh, yes, I have been out. I went to one of my garden club meetings that we had. And so other than that, I haven't been out. So I'll be going out again on either tomorrow or Monday to pick up a few things from the grocery store in preparation of Tuesday's surgery. And boy, they know how to get you. And here I go again. Let me try to keep this at 10 minutes. They know how to get you. They sent the big bill on today that is due before at least 2 to 3 days before the surgery, which meant I better get this thing paid by tomorrow. Well, I didn't want to use my funds for it, not at this time, because I had some other obligations, and there's one other bill I need to pay. And so I said, I don't want to do that. So it had in big letters, you can apply for care something, which is like a credit card. And if you're pre-qualified, you could apply for that. So the bill was for $115. Now, technically, I could have paid it, but like I said, I have another bill that I need to pay, and I didn't want to rock the boat on that because that's a must-pay bill. So I said, well, to take the heat off, so to speak, and to not make any delays in this second eye, because I'm ready. Okay, believe me, but this left eye has told me I am done with whatever it is I've been doing. So it's not bad or anything, but it's blurred a few times, and it's letting me know that it's weaker than the right eye. It's letting me know now. And even looking up close with the glasses and stuff, it's impossible really almost to see. So right now I'm dealing with basically one eye. This one I'm seeing halos, whereas I wasn't at first. I can tell that it's been a decline in the bad eye that needs to be operated on. So I didn't want any delays. I want to get this so that my brain can connect both eyes, and I will be able to see and not have to worry about any of that, with this monovision. Okay, then the other thing, so I so with the bill, it was $115.87, and that's my copay. So I'm going to owe that again after the second eye surgery. So the plan is this. I went on and took out the credit card. Wait a minute, they approved me for that $5,000 that I would have needed, which I figured they would have approved me for, but I wasn't getting into that type of debt for the toric lens, but they approved me for that. But I only owe the 115, so I paid it today. It is done. Okay, so that bill will come in on this time next month, of course. Oh no, I can pay it at any time. I set up my online portal, and if I want to pay the bill early or pay on it early, I can at any time. As soon as my retirement comes in, at the beginning of the month, boom, it's on next month's budget to pay it off. So I'll get that paid. Then that next one will come in, and I will pay that one this time next month as soon as it comes in, because it'll be time for my retirement. And so I won't have that other bill obligation that I have this month. I'll knock it out. So by the end of April, it will be done. And they don't even need to send me a credit card. They said that they would. They can send it all they want. I will not be using it. The only way I probably would have used it is if I needed prescription readers. And you know what? I might end up, because if it's anything like how it is now, 3 is too high. Like I said, the 2, thus far, the 2.5 is okay. Or the 2.0 rather. The 1.7 was not enough. The 3 was too high, and the 2.7 was too much. It made me feel headachy. So depending on how this 2.5 does, once the second eye is done, if I can see clearly, wonderful. If not, I will definitely need to get a prescription. And they said most of the time it's best to go with progressives. And so what they do is the optometrist will, figure out where you're at, and he'll set the prescription. So the bottom part will be your readers, and then the top part will just be clear glass. They say that's the best way to go. Then that way you're not pulling on and off readers all day long. So if it comes to that, that's what I'll do. And I would probably use the card for it, unless they're fairly inexpensive. If not, if this works out, then that's fine. I will go and get more 2.0s. And then another thing too, I was told by other people in the group, and then my sister even told me, she said, you might want to, these are not dollar store. Yeah, these are dollar store. And then I bought a pair at Myers. They both were fairly cheap. I think they were like only $2 at Myers, and then the dollar store, $1.25. My sister said you might want to go more expensive with them. She was like, get you a good $20 pair. She's like, you will find that there is a difference when you do that. And then a lot of people from the group said that too. And they said you can buy progressives also for a little bit more over the counter. So it's going to be some playing around to do. But I know as of Tuesday, I'm going to need something, because I'm not going to be able to see anything up close, period. And right now, I'm not being able to see anything up close too well, because this eye has decided to give up the ghost. Okay. All right, let's get on to today's video. As promised, I decided to come on because I said I would do a bonus story if I could. And the reason is that I want to wrap this up. So hopefully I might be able to wrap up Mama the miniseries on Sunday. And that's good, because that will have me at 4 or 5 videos total. So basically, I'm going to tell my brother's story on today. His story is the hardest one to tell out of all. My mother's story, not hard at all. In fact, my sister and I have both mutually agreed that the death of our brother really has been worse. And I had always heard that there's no other death on this earth worse than the death of your mother. That is true, and I think that would have held true in this case, but because our brother died so early, everything was so sudden, it was totally unexpected, And then, I mean, we knew he was battling the cancer, and that was devastating in and of itself. But the fact that when it happened, it happened. And then the major factor is that he was our only brother. We'll never have a brother again, ever in life. It's like, how does this happen? And then at such a young age, I mean, he had just turned 54. I was 51, and my sister was 52. And so basically, you think about it, you'd be like, wow, if you had known that you were only going to have that short of a time, your whole life would have been probably different. It's just still mind boggling. And so we have had the hardest time with his death. Mom's was expected. She was in her situation for 7 years before she passed away. So we expected, that to happen. So you have time to prepare, try to imagine life without the person, those types of things. But with my brother, that was something that we expected him to bury us. He was a funeral director, big time, so we expected him to be the one burying us, or us all growing, we all growing old together, that type of thing. And it's just hard to wrap your mind around it. So I said, okay, today will be the day I can get his story done, and tell you a little bit about him, and then that takes care of that, because his is the most difficult to discuss. And then my mother's, we'll probably be able to wrap it up on Sunday, if not this Sunday, next Sunday for sure. Yeah, it'll be next Sunday, because I want to end it with showing, I'm going to go to the big computer in my other room, the one that I never turn on, and I ordered a video of her homegoing services, her funeral, that because it was right during the time of the pandemic, so all funeral homes at the time were showing the funerals live, so that people who would normally have attended and couldn't because of the pandemic, we could only have 10 people there. We snuck in 15. How we did it, it's just, it was impossible. But we got 15 in. But then everybody else watched it live from home. My mother had a very high viewership because the site crashed on numerous occasions, we were told, by people who had watched it. And then on top of that, we had so many family and friends who came, and they stood outside. So they were outside and they watched it live from their phones outside of the funeral home where we were, because churches were closed at the time, so we couldn't have it at our church. And they were outside. So when we came out of the funeral, we were shocked, because we weren't expecting, people to come in support of us. And then they went to the cemetery because we were all outside. It was, well over 100 people who were outside waiting on us when we came out. We were like shocked. But anyway, but that's the part I'll end, her story with, and then I'm gonna show an excerpt of her from her funeral as well, which was at the end where they honored me, at the end, or towards the end. And I thought that I wasn't expecting that, and I was shocked. That was my one and only first and probably last standing ovation. So I thought, that it really helped me during the time, because I was, really sad, of course. And then here I am, and then all of a sudden it's announced, let's give Q a standing ovation for the job that she did, job well done. And I was just shocked that they would even do that. I didn't expect anything like that. But anyway, I'll show it as it happened, so you'll get to see that. So anyway, so let's talk about my brother. Now, this is the worst picture of him that actually I have some other pictures of him, but they're put away because they belong to my mother. And I put all her old pictures in a box, and they're in the closet, because I want to give pictures back to the person who gave my mother the pictures. So the pictures of my brother were with his ex-wife and his children, so I was going to give those pictures to his children. No one has come to get anything, nothing. So okay, I guess I'm stuck with the pictures. Okay, so but this is the one picture that my mother had always kept out, so I always kept it out, and it's the worst picture of my brother there is. He looked mad mean on this picture, mean mugging. Okay, I don't know if he was trying to look serious or what, but this is my brother. His name was Roger. And like I said, he passed away in 2015. He had turned 54 in November. He passed away in December. So we're going to tell his story a little bit and then we'll get off. Um, as you know, I've already mentioned my brother about how he was my mother's DPOA and everything, and he was in charge of signing of papers, those types of things, with my mother. And so my mother had her stroke in June, and then she ended up going to the nursing home in it was August by that time, early August, because she spent 45 days in select care, 2 weeks in the hospital before select care. So by the time, and she had her stroke mid-June, so by the time she got to the nursing home, it was like early August. They discovered a week or two, it was about maybe a week and a half later, they did her blood work when the doctor came into the nursing home, and they discovered that she had gone into kidney failure. And so at that point, she had to go to dialysis, and they admitted her to the hospital. They transported her there. Then she had to be in dialysis. The nursing home didn't, do the dialysis. I told all that. Okay, and then I told you about what happened with Lindsay and all that stuff at the nursing home. Okay, so my brother was right in the midst of all of that. Okay, so now we're getting to the point where when mom was getting ready to come home, but before she came home, she's still in the nursing home. My brother, in September, he and his then wife, they had been married since 2007. They were getting ready to take a trip to Italy, and they had planned this like for a year before. So they were getting ready to go to Italy, and they were scheduled to leave the very next day. This was in September. Early, it was after Labor Day, but it was still early September. It might have been around the 9th or 10th or whatever of 2013. And they had thought about canceling it back when mom had her stroke, but then since mom was stabilized in the nursing home and everything, they decided that they would go on and go to go take the trip, because they had paid all this money for it and everything. So they were scheduled to leave the next day. Everybody knew, he was going to Italy, and I knew I was going to miss him. I was like, because you come every dialysis day to give me my break, because my brother would always come after work, and he would sit with mom at dialysis for a good hour before going home from work. He got off at 3. He would sit from 3 until 4, and then he would tell me, go do whatever you need to do, take a break. And that's what I did. And that was my sanity at the time, because I was ripping and running and everything. So anyway, I said, I'm going to miss you while you're gone, because that break at dialysis was wonderful, And so I was like, but I can make it, I was like, enjoy your trip. You deserve it, So they were scheduled to leave the next day. So my brother called me, and he was at work. He called me from work. He was like, I've been not feeling well all day. He was like, something keeps telling me, do not get on that plane going all the way to Italy and not feeling well. And it came on suddenly. He just didn't feel good. And so I was like, well, you might want to go get that checked out. I was like, if someone's telling you not to get on that plane, I said, you might want to go get that checked out. And he had told my sister the same thing. And so he decided, he called his doctor, and he was like, listen, I'm getting ready to go to Italy tomorrow, but I'm not feeling well. In fact, I think he had thrown up or something happened, and he said he was having these sharp pains in his stomach. Doctor told him, oh no, you come on in. And so the doctor got him in, and this was on a Friday, because they were leaving like Saturday. And he had actually called me to tell me, because he was leaving work, going to the doctor. After, that, he called me back and said, I'm going to the doctor. He said, so I'm not going to be at dialysis today. I was like, fine, you do what you have to do. So he goes to the doctor, and I told him, let me know how everything goes. And so, he went to the doctor. And so I got home at about 7 that evening, because mom's dialysis ended. I came home, and then my sister would always be at the nursing home when my mother got back to make sure that she got her medicine and that everything was a-okay with her at the nursing home before she would go home for the evening. So anyway, my brother called me at, it was about 7, and he said, I'm at the hospital. I'm like, what you doing at the hospital? You supposed to be leaving in the morning. I'm thinking everything, he's just going to the doctor and the doctor's going to do whatever, send him on his way, and they take off the next day. He said the doctor, when I got there, he told me to go to the hospital right away after he examined me. And so he's like, so I'm here in ER. So I was like, have you called Sherry? I was asking if he called my sister. And he said, I know she's at the nursing home. He said, I'm going to call her a little bit later. So then I would say about 9, it was either 9 or 10 o'clock, because I did tell him, I was like, let me know what's happening and what they say and all this stuff. And I asked him, where's your wife? He was like, she's here. So I was like, okay. I was like, have her to call, or you call somebody to let us know how you're doing. So it was about 10 o'clock because I had gone upstairs. This is when I was living in the townhome. I had gone upstairs and I had settled down for the evening. I think I had my crocheting or a book or something. I don't know. But I went upstairs and I was getting settled for the evening. And so, wait a minute. Was I in the townhome? No, I wasn't. Wait. Yes, I was. I had just moved there because I moved in the townhome October 3rd. So no, this wasn't September. This was October. My brother they were scheduled to leave like the second week in October. It was October. I know that for sure now. I'm trying to think back 10 years or longer. How long? This is 2013. So yeah, 12 years. It was October because I had just moved into the townhome. I had been there maybe a week or two, and I was all settled in. All the packing was undone and all that. So, and I got unpacked quick because my stuff was already packed before I even moved there. Okay. So anyway, so my brother goes, he goes, I'll call you back, later. So it was about 10 o'clock. I had just got settled in. So the phone rang and I could see it was my brother. And so my sister was on the other end. He called us on 3-way. And so we were like, okay, so what did the doctor say and stuff? He said, I have a blockage. He said, I was like, oh no. I was like, oh, because I knew right away, blockage, that meant no trip to Italy. Everything downhill, although they did get their money back, because yeah, needless to say, they didn't get to go on the gondola or nothing. That happens in Italy, okay? So anyway, he said they're going to be doing surgery in the morning to get me unblocked. He said they tried whatever, the NG tube and stuff, and it didn't help. That's what it took so long, for him to call back. He's like, so they took that out, and I'm going to surgery in the morning. They say it's a severe blockage. So we were like, well, we hate that you have to miss your trip to Italy, but you can always go at another time so they can take care of this blockage. I was like, it's a good thing. He's like, yeah, because the doctor said that if I had gotten on that plane, he said that my intestines would have burst because he didn't know he had a blockage. And my brother had just gotten a colonoscopy a few weeks before and everything was fine. So the last thing we thought was what it turned out to be. So he said, they're taking me to surgery at 5 in the morning. He said, and they're going to do, repair the blockage. So my sister and I, we were like, okay. I was like, okay, y'all, let's get this plan. I was like, Roger, since you're in the hospital and this is happening, I said, Sherry, you go up to the hospital with his wife and, and children and everything. I was like, and you can be there for the surgery. I said, I will deal with mom all day because this is a Saturday. And so there was nothing, no dialysis or anything. I said, I'll go to the nursing home and I'll make sure I'm there and make sure that mom's okay. I'll just stay there all day. I was like, and you all keep me updated with what's going on. So we all agreed to that. And that was the plan. So anyway, about an hour later, it was about 2 hours later. It's midnight. The phone rings again and it's my brother. And he has us on 3-way again. He was like, hold on, let me click Sherry over. So he clicked her over. And me and Sherry both started fussing at the same time. Why are you calling us at midnight and everybody got to be up? Well, Sherry had to be up. And then, of course, my brother, the surgery at 5. And we were like, why are you calling us at midnight, and surgery is in the next 4 to 5 hours or whatever. And I told Roger, I was like, listen, you and Sherry, you've never had surgery, but I have. Believe me, they're gonna be coming in to prep you in the next couple of hours here. I was like, so no, you're not sleeping tonight. I was like, so what's going on? He was like, I'm calling to tell you. He was like, the doctor came back in and they're saying that I have cancer. And so we went quiet. We went very quiet. And y'all, I'm at 30 minutes. This is going to go a little bit longer. I'm sorry. We might make it, we might get to 45. I'm sorry. I let the time get away with me again with the preliminaries. He was like, they're saying that I have cancer. And we got real quiet. Then finally I was like, no. I was like, they probably just saw a spot, or I was like, the blockage itself probably looked like something. I was like, you just had your colonoscopy. And Roger said, yes, I did. He said, but they're saying that it's in a spot where the colonoscopy doesn't reach, because he had a colonoscopy and he had an endoscopy. Hold on. I'm getting my thing. So to describe where the cancer was, okay, this is the colonoscopy. So this is going through your rectum. An endoscopy is when they go down your throat. And so it ends at the end of your stomach. You have something in between. I think it's called a duodenum or something like that. But anyway, either scope will not reach that area. I believe it's the duodenum. I could be wrong because my anatomy and physiology, I took it years ago, but I can't remember. But whatever it is in the middle there, that's the one spot. And it's very rare for people to get cancer to begin in that spot. And that's what happened with him. So it was in that spot that neither scope nor colonoscopy scope could catch. And only way that cancer could be caught is through surgery and through the CAT scan that he had the day before. And it did cause the blockage because of, I guess, inflammation or whatever. So anyway, I was like, well, he was like, they won't be certain until tomorrow, but they're saying that it's cancer. I was like, Roger, nope, it's not. I was like, they're just seeing spots and stuff like that. So no, it can't be cancer. So anyway, so the surgery was still scheduled. So we're having this news. So of course I'm up the rest of the night because I'm worried. I'm like, it's no way that could be cancer. No, I just refuse to accept it or believe it. So that next day, I did everything I was supposed to do, mama-wise and everything. So I was at the nursing home all day. And I left the nursing home probably at about 8 that evening. And so I came home. Mom was asleep, of course, because, of course, she was doped up. So anyway, I came home and was a friend working there? Somebody I knew had started working there. And so that was a great deal because they worked there at night and they would keep an eye on Mom at night. So that allowed me to leave like at 8 o'clock. So anyway, I get home and I'm like, wait a minute, no one's called me. He went to surgery at 5 in the morning, but then he should have come out of surgery. And then it dawned on me, I was like, maybe they were late taking him, because lots of times if you're in the hospital and you're scheduled for something major or even minor, you get pushed back by hours. Because I remember I had to have a cardiac cath 2 years ago. They had me up at 4 in the morning getting ready for all that. And then they come in at 8 o'clock. No, because it was scheduled. Yeah, it was scheduled for like 8 o'clock in the morning. They come in at 8 o'clock. We had an emergency, so they pushed you back to 12 noon. Next thing I know, I'm pushed back to 4 that afternoon. So I'm sitting up there looking silly all day long before I could go for my cardiac cath. So I'm thinking maybe the same had happened, something like that had happened with my brother, because I had stuff like that happen before. I was like, maybe maybe they pushed it back. So I didn't think much of it. I was like, well, let me call Sherry. So I called, and of course the hospital, now the reception is better in hospitals, but back then it was just null and void. So I called, answering machine. So I was like, okay, I know she's still at the hospital. What's going on? But I had to wait for her to call because I couldn't reach anyone because everyone was at the hospital and there's no reception. Finally, about 11 o'clock that night, the phone rings and it's my sister. I was like, what in the hell is going on? I was like, I've been waiting on you to call. I was like, and I couldn't call you. So Sherry was like, listen. And she went on into it. She was like, Roger didn't get out of surgery. And she's like, the surgery was at 5 in the morning. He was in surgery for about 15 hours. She said he didn't get out of surgery until about 9 o'clock tonight. She was like, they removed a lot of his intestine. He has a colostomy bag, blah, blah, blah. The cancer had spread. They had found it in areas, it had started like in that, I'm calling it the duodenum, but I could be wrong. But it had spread throughout his colon, all this stuff. It was just there. And for him to have had a colonoscopy a month before and it wasn't there, so it had spread like in that month's time, and we wondered if that colonoscopy might have activated it or whatever, but there it was. And so he had it wasn't stage 4, but it was like stage 3 or something like that. So they felt that they had gotten it all. He had the colonoscopy, and they figured he would, although recovery would be long, he would have a full recovery and be cancer free after chemotherapy. So we went through that whole spiel. So needless to say, from that moment on, dialysis stuff was over with. I was dealing with mom pretty much full force, and then of course my sister. And when my brother finally, he was in the hospital maybe 2 or 3 weeks before he was able to come home, and there was a lot of hospitalizations in between. He would have to go back for whatever, then the chemo. So all this went on for pretty much almost a year, I would say. But he was able to manage. When it was time to get mama out of there in April, he was able to manage to work his way to that nursing home to sign that paperwork so that she could be discharged. And then after that, he's back into his thing. And then there were so many times I finally, later on that month, I ended up having an MS attack. Remember I said when things got settled with mama, my body just went boom. I ended up having this horrible MS attack. My brother was in the hospital. Mom was in the hospital for something, because she had a lot of hospitalizations too. And then I wound up in the hospital. All three of us was in the hospital. And poor Sherry was run ragged, okay? So anyway, and we were all in the same hospital. So my brother was on one floor, I guess with the men. And then mama and I, we were on another floor, and we were actually in the same area. We were like around the corner from each other. So I would go to check on mama. And it was I walked around there. It was during the day shift because I'm having the MS attack. And I asked the nurse, could I take my treatment in my mother's room when they came to do the Solomedrol IV infusion? And she was like, sure. I was like, okay, I'll meet you around there. She was like, I'll be in there at about 9:30. So I'm walking. I had never met the day shift there. I had only, dealt with because I was in my room and stuff. So I'm walking and stuff. And this lady looked, she was like, my God. She looked, and I knew what it was. She thought I was my mother because everybody say we look just alike. So anyway, although I think I look more like my father, but anyway, I startled her. She was like, what are you? And then I was like, I'm her daughter and I'm here. She was like, but isn't her son here too? I was like, yeah, my brother's in the hospital. I was like, our whole family, with the exception of my sister, who's being run ragged right about now. I was like, we're all here in the hospital together. Because my brother would come up to see mom, so they had seen him. So they were like, oh, but they didn't know I had come, there. So I was like, I'm just going to her room to check on her, and they're going to do my Solomedrol treatment in there. That nurse, oh, we got a kick out of that. She was like, your mother is totally bedridden, and I'm thinking a miracle had occurred. I was like, yeah, me. So anyway, so we were all three in the hospital at the time. So I was in there like a week. My mother, she didn't get out for like another week after me, and then my brother, of course, he was in there. So so that's how that went. And so that gave me a break, with mom being in the hospital. That gave me time once I got discharged to recover as much as possible. But believe me, I was right back to it after the fact, after the fact. And so then my sister, she and a friend, they would go to dialysis after mom got out because I still wasn't recovered enough to just come to dialysis. So they would go and sit with her at dialysis. My sister ended up taking off time from work. And plus, she was a case manager. So basically, she had flexibility too. But she ended up taking like a few weeks off because it was just too much going on at that time. So so you know what? I'm going to have to do, because we're at 40 minutes. Yeah, I'll keep going another 20 minutes. Okay, so that was the beginning of my brother's journey. And so he finally, he was declared cancer free and he went back to work and he was doing great, So that was 2015. Okay, so 2013. So 2014, he was doing okay until he decides to get the colostomy reversed. And I think I told y'all about that. He got that reversed and boom, he ended up on life support because something happened. It was a complication to the surgery. And so like me, he almost died and he ended up on a ventilator and everything. And he almost died. So this was 2014. We were like, you shouldn't have been messing with nothing, so we fussed about that when it was over and done with, but after that scare was over with, he was okay, so he went on. So 2015 got here, he was doing okay and everything. And so towards right after his birthday, he called one night and he called my sister and I both, and he was like, well, the cancer has come back. He said, they told me that the cancer has come back and returned. And so I was like, so what are they going to do? How are they going to treat it? Are they going to, do the colostomy again or what? He said, I'm going to do what I have to do. So he decided to go on he was scheduled for chemo for one, and radiation. And then he wanted to go on the experimental drug that Jimmy Carter, the late President Jimmy Carter, was on at the time that had worked so well for him. And so that was the plan. And so after he told us that, it was like 3 days later when everything was about to happen. I'm at the flea market one day just having a good old time, because everything was going fine. We knew what the plan was and everything. I'm at the flea market shopping and I'm shooting a breeze with everybody at the flea market. My phone rang and it was my niece's number. I'm like, what my niece calling me for? But it was actually who was calling me? My sister. She was calling from her daughter's phone. I'm like, hello? She was like, get to the hospital right now. She was like, she said Roger had a stroke and Nicholas is performing CPR. I don't know what's happening, but they're taking him to, and she told me the hospital. I started freaking out right there in the flea market and they would not let me leave. Oh, they grabbed me. The people around me, they grabbed me. They were like, you're not driving. You are not driving. I was just freaking out. And so I got myself calm and I said, okay, I'm calm. I said, so an emergency happened with my brother. I said, I need to get to the hospital. They were like, are you sure you could drive? It took some convincing. I was in that flea market like another 20 minutes before they felt that I was stable enough to drive. And I was. By then I had to calm down because I had called one of my aunts and she was like, I'm praying for you right now. And then somebody at the flea market started praying, and that calmed me down enough to where I could get myself together and get my bearings to where I could drive the car. And fortunately, I wasn't too far from the hospital that he was at. It was like a straight shot. He wasn't in our town. He was in his town in Rochester. So I was able to get to the hospital. I was the first one there, because I didn't know what was going on. So then my nephew came in because they had got my brother to the hospital. Now, my nephew, my brother's son, who looks just like him, we call him the clone. He got to the hospital. He had just taken a CPR course through this job that he had just started working. He was required to do CPR. And so he had just gotten his certification the day before this happened. So as it turns out, my brother had taken the medication and he called my nephew because they had worked that day because my brother's in the funeral business and my nephew would help him. So he worked for the funeral home also, as well as for the job he had just gotten. So it was a Saturday and they had gone to work. They had done a funeral that day and they had just gotten home. So they're getting ready to watch football because, this is December, you know. And so my nephew turned on the football, and the way my brother's house was made, although he lived in a 3-story home, the master bedroom was on the first floor. There was an office. Soon as you walked into the house, there was an office there, and then there was a next room, which was the master bedroom. So it was a big bedroom. Then it had like this hallway foyer in the bedroom where the walk-in closet and stuff was, and then you had the master bathroom. This was all on the first floor. All other bedrooms were either upstairs or in the downstairs area, which was fixed up. He had like 3 bedrooms down there and then 3 bedrooms on the second floor. And so my nephew, who was living there at the time with them, he was downstairs. He just took over that domain. But he was in the living room. He had cut on the TV and they were getting ready to watch football, eat, and all this other stuff. So my brother had taken the medicine and he called my nephew. And my nephew he said it calmly. He's like, Nicholas, come here for a minute. And Nicholas went into the room, and Nicholas said, the moment I stepped into the bedroom, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, and he just fell backwards, and he started convulsing. And then my nephew said, all of a sudden, he heard him stop breathing. He yelled for my sister-in-law to call 911 that something was going on. So she was busy with that. And when he stopped breathing, my nephew started performing CPR on him. So he never would have thought that the day after being certified, he would have to perform CPR on his father. And so that bought him some time because basically that was it, So he did the CPR. And then, the paramedics took over once they got there. And what took so long for them to get to the hospital was they were working on him. And so when they finally got a pulse and all that stuff, then, they rushed him on to the hospital. Then my nephew, sister-in-law, everybody, it's like I'm sitting there for about 10 minutes by myself, not even knowing what to do because they ushered me to the little room. So I didn't know what had happened. And so all of a sudden, the hospital just flooded. Friends, family, you name it, everybody was there. So everybody come in and I looked at my nephew. I was like, what happened? And he told me, what I just told y'all. And I said, thank you for performing CPR. I was like, I wonder what's going to go on. He's like, I don't know. Well, we were there. And so finally, after a few hours, the doctor came in. He told us he was critical. He's like, we don't know if he's going to live or not. He said he's on life support. He said he has a ventilator, and he's like, we'll let you all see him. He said, but he's in ICU. He said, you can only see him, for a few minutes. He's like family only, so it was so all the friends there, they couldn't see him, but they were just there for support and stuff. And so a few hours later, they let, of course, his wife go in first and then his children. And then my sister and we got to go in. And so when we went in that room and I saw him, he was just full of, I counted at least 20 IV poles and everything was just full of everything. And I looked at him and I saw how he looked with the thing, and all the breathing was assisted. None of it was him on his own. And I knew he wasn't going to live. I said, this is it. This is it. So I knew he wasn't going to live. It was just artificial life at that point. And I think they were just trying to let us, because everything was so sudden, to get prepared for what was to come. So that next day, I eventually went home. I took my niece because my niece was only, how old was Chantel? Let's see. She was born in 2000. It was 2015, but she was still fairly young and everything. So I took her with me because my sister, she wasn't leaving the hospital, and so she was still young. And so I brought her home with me. And then her father picked her up later on, that evening. And so, we went and got something to eat, and I came home. And the reason why I came home was because, with my health and everything, and it was just so many people up there. So I came home. I knew it was nothing I could do anyway. So, and I wasn't getting back into the room, and I really didn't want to see him again like that. So anyway, I came home. So that next day, it was early that next morning. I didn't sleep none that night. And so early that next morning, my phone rang, and it was my niece. It was my brother's daughter. She said, come up to the hospital. She said they're going to be disconnecting him in the next few hours. She's like, so you need to come up to the hospital. And so I said, okay. I was calm then. I already knew. I was like, it's no way. I was like, if he live, he ain't gonna be the same person. It was gonna be worse off than my mother. And I'm thinking, okay, so now here we go. We got mom, and then now we got my brother. So if he lives through this, I was like, then we're going to really have to, figure out something. And I didn't want him in the nursing home. That was for sure. I was like, we just, we're dealing with that right now. No, mom was out of the nursing home by the time my brother died. She was out. Okay. She had been out since that April. Okay. So anyway, I get up to the hospital, and, my mother's friend came to sit with her at the, wait, no, my mother was in the hospital when my brother died. Come to think of it. But her friend did go up there to sit with her. Okay, so, and that day, that same day, they had decided they were going to disconnect my brother at 5 p.m. And this is December. Okay, so in the meantime, I got up there at about 12, so they're letting everybody say their goodbyes. And once again, it was over 100 people there. We had a whole big section of that intensive care on lockdown. It was us. The doctor came in. He explained things. My sister was angry because she felt that my sister-in-law should have left him connected. I was like, listen, Sherry, who was going to help her care for him? Because the doctor said, if we keep him on life support, he will be a vegetable for the rest of his life. He would need extreme care. He would probably have to go to a facility. They would have lost everything they had, just like, with me, with all that. And so I told Sherry, I was like, were you going to take care of his wife financially? Were you going to help with his care? I was like, she has to make this decision. I was like, and we need to support that decision. And so she decided he would need to be disconnected simply because, and the kids also agreed, his children. I was like, Sherry, we have no say so. Yes, we're the sisters, but you can't influence what they decide because that is his wife and those are his children. And so they're looking at the big picture here. I was like, so we have no say so in what's going to happen. I was like, we may want him to live. I was like, and everything. I was like, but the point is, I was like, just with mama's case alone, I was like, no, if they decide to disconnect him, I'm thinking to myself, okay, he's going down, but it's his appointed time. I've always been of that belief. Okay, so we're at 52 minutes, so I'm wrapping it up, y'all. Okay, so anyway, they made the decision that he would be disconnected, and my sister wasn't happy at all, but I understood totally, because had they not. So, and it was his appointed time. He actually went the day before. That was it. He was gone. When I saw him, I was like, it's just a ventilator breathing into him. And he was swelling up and all, getting to the point where he wasn't looking like himself. I was like, they need to just go on and end this. So basically, that was the decision. But they said, we'll do it at 5. We'll give you guys time to say your goodbyes and everything. And at that time, it was just us, the family in there. They wouldn't even let other family, because our cousins were there. Everybody was there. They couldn't even come into that meeting. And we were fortunate. I told Sherry, you lucky we even got into the room, because we had to be invited in, because they asked his wife, do you want his sisters to come? And she's like, yes, they can come. Because we're trying to be support for my niece and nephew. And then their mother was there, which was my brother's ex-wife. And although she was there for support because she was no longer his wife, she couldn't come into the room. So we were able to go in. I was like, be happy we were even able to go into the room, for the meeting. And so, but we had no say so in it. So when it was decided, he's like, we're going to do it at 5 o'clock. He said, so you all have a few hours here to say your goodbyes and whatnot. And so that's what it was. So they didn't have no limits on going into the room at that point. We could go at any time. We could sit there. So my cousins, everybody who was there got a chance to go to say goodbye. Those who wanted to, everybody didn't go in there. And so we did it. And so when the time came for them to well, before then, we decided to shoot to the hospital because mom, at that time, by then, she was back to being coherent where she could talk and everything. Because I'm skipping ahead. Because remember, I told you my mother, when she came home, she could talk and everything. Although she was in the hospital, she could understand, she could talk. And we had to make a decision. Do we tell her or do we not? And I told my sister, she's gonna know. I was like, because she's coherent now. I was like, I'm not spending the rest of these whatever years she have left trying to lie to her when she asked about him. No way. Because my brother came to see her weekly. He had just seen her, the prior week. I was like, she's got to know. And Sherry was like, well, what if it kills her? I was like, you know what? Then we'll have a double funeral. I was like, we got to tell her. So we went to the hospital, and some of our cousins went to be of support. And we first told the nursing staff what was going on and what was getting ready to happen at 5 o'clock. They said, like, we're going to give her a sedative, but it wasn't going to be at 5 o'clock. It was going to be the following day once we had to break the news to her that he had passed. And so basically, so they knew what was going on and everything. So we went in. It was quick and to the point. She got to talk to a lot of her nieces and nephews that she hadn't seen in a while. And so, we talked and everything for about 10 minutes. And then finally, I said, Mom, we have to tell you something. And she knew my brother was in the hospital. She just didn't know what was going on. And I told her, and I said, Mom, I was like, Roger has suffered a heart attack. I said, and she looked at me. She was like, and so I knew she understood. I was like, about his medical condition and everything. She already knew about all that. I said it was a result of him taking a medication that wasn't FDA approved yet. I said, and it stopped his heart. I said, so therefore, I said, right now he's on a ventilator. I said, and we're going to need to disconnect it on tomorrow. I said, so he's not going to survive this. I said, do you understand? And she said, yeah. And then she's like, I dreamed that I lost my son. I said, well, this is your dream, coming to pass. Because she had dreamed it like recently, she said. So she was okay with it and everything. And so we left. We told her we're going to leave. I was like, and I'll be back first thing in the morning. And so Mom's friends, the ones I told you about, her best friend, then her other friend, her prayer partner, and then her goddaughter, they rallied around. And so they were with Mama around the clock during this moment, during this period. So anyway, we get back to the hospital and even more people were there. And so finally the time came. And so they told us, they said, we're not going to let you in the room when we disconnect them, but you'll be able to go in shortly thereafter. So we stood in the hallway. And then, because they said it's traumatic because they had so much to disconnect them from, all the IVs and all this stuff. And then they had to pull that ventilator out, and they said the sound isn't that great. And of course, I put my ear up to the wall so I could hear the sound. Yep, me. And of course, I heard it, and I'm like, okay, now I know. So I would not have wanted to see when they pulled that ventilator out and heard that sound, And so my sister swears that he was still breathing after they disconnected. I was like, Sherry, he was as dead as a doornail. His eyes was set and everything else. I was like, I didn't see no movement, but his stomach was moving. I think she saw what she wanted to see because she was upset, okay? So she felt that they could hook him back up and maybe he would live and some miracle would occur. I was like, Sherry, it's over, okay? Now, when I went in there after the fact, they let us come in about 10 minutes after, because what they did was they got all the IVs, everything unhooked. And so he was just there at that point, and he looked peaceful and everything. And so they let anybody just come in so we could view him. And, I'm not telling everything that happened in between with all the crying and screaming and all that. It was a nightmare, okay? I just made it sound, you just hearing the story, but it was a nightmare, not with me. I cried, but I was so focused on Mama, I didn't really get to grieve my brother, the whole time. I just knew that I said, this is it, it's done. So back to mama. Basically, it wasn't that I didn't care or anything. Oh, believe me, I was all involved with everything. But, and it was sad, but I just didn't have time to fall apart like other people did, so I didn't. And so, anyway, so that was it, that was the end. And so, a lot of my friends and some of my cousins that I'm more closer to, they followed me home, that evening. And we were there at my house, and then people were just everywhere, so I don't know what was going on. I wasn't a part of any of the preliminaries and festivities and whatever happens after a death, even after his funeral, and I will get to that real quick. I know we're at an hour. Okay, so his funeral was a week later, 2 days after Christmas. He died on the 20th, and then, Christmas time was coming, so it was 2 days after Christmas. So what happened was mom had transport, and they called me up when they found out that he had passed, because mom had to be at dialysis Monday. So that's when they found out that my brother had passed, that she had lost her son. And so dialysis found out, and then the transport, who transported her to and from. And we had a great rapport with them. They were the best. They loved my mother. Oh, wow. But anyway, I received a call Tuesday because my mother, she was still in the hospital, but they let her, she got discharged that the day after he passed. My mother got discharged from the hospital. So she came home. And so I got a call that Tuesday, and it was the head person at the mobile place. And he said, first of all, I'm calling to offer my condolences. I understand that Miss Davis lost her son. I said, yes, she did. And he said, do you think that she would want to attend his services? I was like, I know she would. I was like, but she can't attend. I was like, and neither can I. I said, because, there's no way to get her there. He said, as a courtesy, we would love to transport your mother to the funeral. We'll send 2 workers, and they will sit throughout the funeral with you guys, and then we'll transport her home if she would like to attend. I started crying right there. I think that was the first time I cried, since it all happened, And so I was like, thank you so much. I was like, my mother is going to be appreciative. And so that's what happened. So the day of the funeral, they came. I rode in the ambulance with them. They let me ride up front. And so I'm dressed in caregiving gear. I had a smock, and I had scrubs. Whenever we went to the doctor or anything, dialysis, I wore my smock and I wore my scrubs, and I had a name tag. I did that. Someone had given me that advice, someone who had been a caregiver. They said that way, if there's ever an emergency, they know automatically that you are the caregiver because you have caregiver and your name on that name tag, and you're dressed in hospital gear, with a smock. They're going to eye you, and they're going to automatically come to you instead of trying to go to everybody else to figure out what's going on. And there were times where we had emergencies, and that's exactly what would happen. I knew my mother's medications right off the top of my head. No one else knew. I knew her Social Security by heart. No one else knew. I knew all the information that if it needed to be given in a quick fashion, there was at least 3 occasions where that happened. And I was able to rattle it off. And my my sister looked at me. I was like, that's why I'm the caregiver and you're not. And so, because I was called to do that, okay? But anyway, so I went in my caregiving gear so that anybody at the funeral, because mama had to go by stretcher. So the church in advance, they set up, we were in the back. They had it was a big church. They had it set up in the back where my mother would be in the aisleway on the stretcher and facing, everything. So she was there at the funeral. And all the people, there were thousands of people there. They had the overflow. That was full. People were outside in this winter time. It was just so packed. And so when we got there a little early. So that gave my mother a chance to be able to view my brother and see him and all that. So she was able to do all that. And so people were just already there. So when we came in, every eye was on us. which I hated. That just, ugh, I just hated that. But it's something unusual. You don't see anyone come to their son's funeral on a stretcher. So, and then a lot of people, most people knew my mother too and everything, but it was just some who was just there to be nosy, and it made me uncomfortable. But there I was. So I guess they figured. I heard someone say, "That's the one who takes care of her." You could hear whispering out loud. So they're talking. So I just walked on through. So that was my chance to view them, and everything. So we came up. So the transport people, they were like, "Do y'all mind if we go to the truck?" And I was like, "Yeah, you could go to the truck and sit and whatnot." And so I said, "I'll text you," because I had their number. I was like, "When we're ready or when they're getting ready to end it, I'll text you because she's going to have to go out first." And so they's like, "Okay, we'll be there. We're not going anywhere." So I was like, "Okay." I was like, "But if y'all need to, we're going to be in here for a while. This is a black funeral, okay?" So I was like, "We'll be here at least an hour. So if you want to go grab lunch, do that. You got plenty of time." I was like, "But the parking spot." I was like, "That's the only thing. You might lose that." They were like, "Oh, don't worry. We can park in the middle of the street if we want to." So I was like, "Okay, do what you got to do." So that's what they did. So we were in there like an hour and a half or whatever. And then, I texted them when we were getting ready to end. And they came on in to get her. And of course, every eye. But yeah, at the end, right before they closed the casket, they gave my mother a rose. And so they came, because the transport people were no longer in there. So someone else had to roll her stretcher, to the casket for the final view and everything. So my nephew came, which was my brother's son. And then I walked behind them because that's my final view too. And then, I don't know, two of the funeral people or whatever that my brother worked with, of course they're bereaved because, this is their boss who died, So they came and they rolled my mother and I walked behind, and then my mother had a rose that they had given her. And so they took her right to the casket, and she was able to place the rose on top of my brother. So that was her goodbye. Then I took my last look, and then of course everybody's staring at us because it was a long walk back, so I'm walking and I'm trying to hold in the tears because I knew it was coming. And because I passing my family and stuff, and I'm in the back and everybody else is up front. And so I'm walking and I'm like, "Oh Lord, please let me make it to the seat before I bust out crying." I got halfway and it was like, "Ah!" So yeah, but anyway, I almost made it. And so I'm blinded by tears, of course, trying to get back. And, that was it. That was basically it. So, yep. So, we had a service, and then afterwards they took my mom and I home, got her situated, and that was it. I wasn't at the repast and all these things. I was there with mom and hoping that someone would bring me a plate, which someone did. I had food and stuff. And then a few came by that evening and sat with us, and that was it. I was not allowed to, really grieve anymore. It was like back to what we were doing. That next day, mom had to be at dialysis. It was like life went back, and it was very, very difficult. And then even with my mother, it became difficult later because she started, when reality set in, she started having a difficult time with it. And so we, AAA1B got her set up with grief counseling. And thank God they allowed me to be in on the grief counseling too. As the caregiver, they counseled both of us. So we did our sessions with grief counseling, and we went on. And my mother lived another 5 years after my brother had passed. Let's see, he passed in 2015. She passed in 2020. Actually, his 5th year was that December, but mom passed in July. So she lived like 4 years and 8 months, beyond him. So, and we didn't know how long she would make it after him, but she did very well. Okay, so I'm gonna end it here because we are over an hour. We're at an hour and 8 minutes. So, yep. So I just wanted to get my brother's story out the way. Where's the picture? So this is him, So that was it. So now we're through with that part, and thank God I was able to tell the story without breaking down into tears. So it's easier now, And my brother is now a grandpa. His daughter had a baby. He just turned 2 in February. So that's the hard part now. It was my mother's first great grandchild, and that would have been his first grandchild. And so his ex-wife is remarried. So her husband, which is someone that I know very well, I said, boy, if it was anybody who would have had the opportunity to be the stepfather to my niece and nephew, and although they were in their 20s when he passed away, well, my nephew just turned 31 or 32. No, they were in their late 20s. Yeah, he just turned 32, and my nephew was in college. He still had a year to go. So my sister helped him to finish up, and he finished up. He did not go into the funeral business. He ended up doing something totally different, and now he's disabled. That's a long story. He lost his eyesight, so now he's legally blind from wearing contacts and not taking them out at night. Long story, but I won't get into his business. But that's what's happening with my nephew. But they're doing good. And then, my sister helped him to finish up through college. My niece got her master's. I think she got her master's before he passed, or it might have been like right after. So they're doing very, very well. And so, yep. So, but my little nephew, the one we call Nugget, he'll never know his grandfather and stuff. But as far as his mother's second husband, he was a very good friend of mine. We worked together years ago and everything. I said, if anyone would be the one to take that spot, no one replaces, but if there was anyone I would have a choice to, he's a real good guy. And so he's the stepfather to, my niece and nephew, and they're grown. So that's that, so really it's nothing fatherly, but he's like the pawpaw to my little, great nephew. And my little great nephew loves him, and I believe that Ray loves my little great nephew. So they get along just fine. So if anyone had the opportunity to be his grandfather and that influence in his life, I'm glad that Mr. Ray is the one to do it. We're great friends, and it's like we're one big happy family. I often, I look at him and I'm like, you're just part of the family, doggone it. So, hey, whatever. So anyway, and we still get along good with my sister-in-law, because she's the mother of our niece and nephew. So the closeness has always remained. And then I was close to my brother's second wife, but we've kind of fallen off. We're still in touch and everything, but then she had some health issues later, not too long after the fact, and so we just kind of fell off. But we're still, we're friends on Facebook. We haven't been able to get together or anything like that, but we're still very friendly. My sister, on the other hand, that she never did get over the fact that what had happened. So that whatever, that's the way I look at it. But as far as she's concerned, she's still my sister-in-law. And and we have always said we're going to get together, but it's like it's always something. Her health, my health, we never been able to connect. So hopefully this will be the time that we'll be able to do it, perhaps this year. I'm hoping. My fingers are crossed, because I really, really miss her. I miss her terribly. Okay, so anyway, so that's it. So I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to let you guys go, and I will talk to you Sunday. And I promise the next installment, we're going to try to wrap up with Mom next week. So we'll talk about the caregiving days, like after my brother passed, just some of the little quirks and different things that occurred during that time, dialysis, that type of thing. We don't have to go into every single hee and ho like I've been doing. And then we'll end it, with when she passed away and everything, and we'll be done. And then we'll get into our next story, which will probably be, I'm trying to decide if I want to talk about the bully years when I was bullied as a kid, or if I want to talk about my friendship with a man who was a centenarian that during my college years. That was very interesting. So y'all help me to decide. The bully years, it wasn't all that bad, because I guess y'all probably thinking I'd have had a horrible life, but no, not at all. I've had more wonderful things to happen throughout my life than the bad things. Yep. But I just got the two worst things. Oh, my father. I have to tell his story. So we'll probably go to my father next, and then we'll decide what to talk about after that. Okay, so we'll be wrapping this up. So anyway, let me get off of here. Let me wrap this up before I get into 2 hours here. And I will talk to you guys later. I hope I wasn't too long. Just watch it in parts. When you see that it's over an hour long, that's probably what y'all doing anyway, watching it in parts. So I will talk to you guys later, and I will see you on Sunday for to wrap up, to start wrapping up with moms, and then I'll see you again on probably Tuesday or Wednesday to let you know how my second eye surgery went. I'm hoping it goes as well as the first, but yep, things are working out. So hopefully everything will turn out good with the second eye surgery. So I will talk to you guys later, and may God bless you all. Bye bye.